Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day and this city in which we live. Guide us this evening as we make our decisions. In Christ's name, amen.
Amen.
This is the regular meeting of the Newnan City Council, February the 22nd, 2022. You have the regular minutes from the meeting of February the 8th, 2022 before you. I'll entertain a motion. We adopt those minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. We adopt the minutes of February the 8th, 2022 as presented. Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carried. Thank you. The next item on the agenda tonight are boards and commissions. The first appointment of the Planning Commission. I understand we need to put that on our next agenda.
Yes, sir.
All
Thank
right,
you.
thank you. And the next appointment on the Tree Commission, next agenda? All right, thank you. And the next is not an appointment, but it is the acceptance of a resignation of Mr. Littleton of the Farmer Street Cemetery Commission, accepted with regrets. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carried. Mr. Phillips, you have anything this evening?
No, sir, Mayor.
I don't have anything this evening. The next item of business under new business is a pending promotion to captain of Lieutenant Denver Atwood. Chief, how are you, sir?
Good evening, Mayor and Council, and thank you for a few minutes of your time this evening. As we continue moving forward and further in our organizational structure in the Newnan Police Department, it is with great pleasure that I come before you today to announce that one of our lieutenants will be pinned tonight to the rank of captain. If I could get Lieutenant Denver Atwood and his family please to come forward. Lieutenant Atwood has been an employee with the Newnan Police Department since 1998. That's fine.
Chief, I don't know, you might want to reconsider.
During his 24 years with the department, he has worked in the patrol division and the drug and vice unit. He was later promoted to the rank of sergeant in CID as a detective and later returned to the drug and vice unit as a supervisory sergeant. He was then promoted in 2018 to the training lieutenant. During this period of time in police work and serving the community, our competency as officers is imperative. To aid in that effort, to remain competent, we continuously need to train and stay community oriented. We have 7 certified instructors, with Lieutenant Atwood being one of those. He has been a general instructor for our agency since 2006. Since that time, he has obtained numerous advanced instructor certifications to include firearms, defensive tactics, use of force, de-escalation, and driver instructor certifications, just to name a few. Lieutenant Atwood has a total of 4,784 hours of training in his career thus far, and he is tasked with training daily and throughout the year on policies, law updates, and changes, and all necessary state certification training needs for our officers. We have grown our training division from 1 to 3 full-time officers. Lieutenant Atwood has been and will continue to be in charge of that unit, as well as serving as our SWAT commander and our Honor Guard commander. Our goal at the Newnan Police Department is to remain professional, competent, and involved with our community. Lieutenant Atwood has exhibited the necessary traits, values, and morals to assist the Newnan Police Department in maintaining those goals. As a part of our Newnan PD family and team, we will work together to continue building and advancing the Newnan Police Department to be the best in the state and our country. Here today with his wife Crystal and children Allison, Emily, Sophie, Ethan, and Addie to assist with performing the pinning, it is with great pleasure I announce the promotion of Lieutenant Denver Atwood to the rank of captain with the Newnan Police Department.
Put that in the cheer alumni page. Yeah, we did. Cheer it together. Cheerleaders. Okay. Yeah, he was a stunt partner. He's got with the first male cheerleader.
Councilwoman Jenkins said you didn't read in the bio that he's co-ed as what, first male cheerleader?
Thank you, sir. But I still use that. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Chief. Okay, we'll move on to the next item. This next item is an annexation request to annex 2022-1, excuse me, by Apex Land Company, 1.994 acres of State Route 34 bypass, a portion of tax parcel 073B033, requested zoning of RML, part of a development requesting 138 townhomes, decision for referral to the Planning Commission. I'll need a motion to refer to the Planning Commission.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second, we refer this item to the Planning Commission for their deliberation. Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion carried. The next item is also a referral to the Planning Commission. This is a rezoning request, RZ 2022-01 by Apex Land Company for 20.0119 acres on Roscoe Road, a portion of tax parcel 073B010, requesting an RML. This is for the same 138 townhome. This is for information only, being sent to the Planning Commission. The next item, though, is an annexation request, annexation for 2022-02 by North 390 LLC for 5.19 acres on State Route 34 bypass. Requested zoning is CGN, General Commercial District, and this annexation is by 60% method. This is referral to the Planning Commission. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion to second, refer to the Planning Commission. Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion carried. Thank you. The next is a presentation of internal request for funding under the ARPA.
Mayor Brady, as Mr. Moody gets his notes in order, I do want to draw to your attention here that while this list is exhaustive, it's the first projects that will come to this body. There will be others that include activities such as stormwater improvement, maybe our friends with Newnan Utilities and others that we've discussed in the past. So please understand that as Mr. Moody presents the information here for the internal requests, this is not the end. Mr. Moody.
Mr. Mayor, council members, thank you for having me tonight. First, before I get into too many things, I want to provide a clarification and a correction to some of the totals that you'll see in your agenda item. Those were miscalculated. There were two figures that are provided in one of the IT applications for the internals. The 3-year option makes the total $1,099,813, and the 1-year option makes it $1,070,612. So just to provide those corrections on the record, they were miscalculated in the original document. I reran those figures today when I caught it.
So that's item 5?
That will be,
Yes.
yes. I believe so.
Okay, so say those numbers again.
So on item 5, the IT Next Generation Firewall, there are two options. The 3-year at $73,200 and the 1-year at $43,999. Those figures, when you put those two together, they provide two different possible totals for the funding under General Government Services, changing what the original calculation was on the document that you were provided in your agenda item.
What Mr. Moody's talking about is
Okay.
Yes, all total.
the items total. IT's request is not for $1 million.
Correct.
That's
No,
what
this
I
this
heard.
would be for every internal application. The total ARPA obligation for this would total to that amount.
Thank you for the second clarification.
Absolutely.
You were about to
I was like, that is one massive firewall.
Okay.
However, we do recommend this 73,000 coming out of IT.
Correct.
Yes, sir.
It's the better deal, absolutely. Any question from council on any of these items? Is there a motion for approval?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second that we approve all 12 items at the stated amounts. Any discussion or questions? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carried. Thank you. The next is, you're still up, Mr. Moody, on the external applicants.
Yes. So the first application that you will see is from the Housing Authority of Newnan. This request is to create a recreational park off of Boone Drive. And according to the applicant, the existing facility is old and deteriorated and in need of replacement. The applied category is in the 3.9 Healthy Childhood Environments Other category. This will require certain eligibility standards for the funds to be awarded, and the category is designed to service families that are considered disproportionately impacted. The requirement has been met as the subject area falls inside a qualified census tract, and the applicant has also backed up the information by providing income data that fits within the Treasury guidelines. The amount of ARPA funds requested is $249,515, with a portion being used in contribution from the Housing Authority from waived pilot funds. This category will also require the Housing Authority to be recognized as a subrecipient and not a beneficiary. This will include that they are also required to abide by all the ARPA guidelines as well as terms and conditions set by Treasury, civil rights compliances, and any additional procurement policies that the city has.
Okay,
I have one question, Mayor.
sure.
I've been working with Miss Sandra on this, and Chris Carlisle was one of the ones that started this, but there was something about the county designing, and that's not what I think we originally had the plans for. And my thought was planning by professional services. So will this cover the cost, Ms. Sandra, of the professional services to design this?
I think we
Ms.
put,
Dozier, I'm sorry, if you'll state your name for the
oh,
record.
I'm sorry, I'm just talking.
That's all right.
My name is Sandra Stroge. I'm the president and CEO of the Housing Authority of Newnan.
Thank you.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. I believe we put in enough that would, a cushion in there, if that was the desire of this council, that we would get a professional design. The city had offered their assistance, and we appreciate it, but we are open to whatever this council recommends.
And I recommend that, Mayor, that we go with a professional design team to.
Absolutely, I agree. I'm sure the county's fine at doing what they do with their recreation department, but I think we need professional design services here
Okay.
that would eventually develop a set of plans that you would go out for an RFP,
Yeah,
bring it back in,
correct.
and that you would be the administrator of the grant money,
Yes.
of the external money here.
Yes,
and-
sir.
And provide that service yourself,
Yes,
rather
sir.
than them being that. With that change, is there
So moved.
a
Second.
motion? Second. Okay. Discussion.
Just a quick question, just for the record, that is city property, correct?
Correct. A portion of it, a portion, yeah.
The playground that be renovated is actually on property on that.
Housing Authority.
Housing
Correct.
Authority.
Yeah,
That's
correct.
correct.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's not
Mr.
city,
Sears and I researched that.
Okay.
A few months
yeah,
ago.
city doesn't own that
Okay.
property.
And
It was a
Mr.
city Newnan property at one
Right,
time.
yeah. And Mr. Sears helped build that playground in 19.
Oh, okay,
You're dating yourself. then.
I'm
Okay.
dating myself.
Maybe you would like to continue in that trend and help it.
It was a little bit before my time, so I appreciate it.
Do you have pictures, Mr. Sears?
Okay, this has gotten personal, so we're
Okay,
gonna
thank
move
you.
away from it. Okay, so I have a motion, a second, to approve the request. Any other discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign, motion carried. Thank you for being here. We
Thank you,
that
appreciate it.
very much. Mr. Moody, you had another external request.
Yes, we do. We have a second request from NRG Fitness. This request is to recover business losses experienced during the pandemic. This category is in the 2.9 Small Business Economic Assistance category, And in order to be eligible for this category, a business must either show that they are operating within a qualified census tract or exhibit loss in gross receipts from the year of the pandemic to the base year 2019. The applicant has successfully done so and meets the eligibility requirements to receive general economic assistance. The applicant is requesting $28,052.16, and the applicant has indicated that the funds received will be used to help pay rent, utilities, and support payroll. Under this category, the applicant will be recognized as a beneficiary. Therefore, they will not be subject to any ARPA guidelines, but are subject to any guidelines set by the city.
All right,
Mr. Mayor, before we proceed with this, I think we need to help staff and Mr. Moody with some guidelines where we're going with this. I'm all in favor of this gentleman getting these funds, but I think we need to look at some ranges of money and whether it's qualified census tract. I think Mr. Moody ought to explain that a little bit to us. And the number of employees would be an area, and then the profit and loss on these things I think are covered by tax returns over the past couple of years. So I'd just like to kind of start off a discussion, if you don't mind, and after talking to Cletus and Haskell and Mr. Moody, kind of looking at maybe anywhere and up to 25,000 or an up to 50,000 per request, and then have a number of employees be up to 75 full-time employees. But I think after looking at all this, this kind of covers everything, and I'd let these gentlemen, I mean, I've been working with them the last few days trying to figure this, if they could expound on that some.
Do we have a slide for that?
We do not have a
Okay.
slide for that at the moment.
Mr. Phillips.
Yeah, and I agree with Mr. DeBose, why I also certainly support NRG's application here, and he's met the qualifications. I do think we, as we discussed last year about the buckets, I do think that once we consider the first small business and the loss of revenue, I think we are going to start seeing applications come in, and I think it'd probably be beneficial to this council as we go forward in considering those applications to set some policies and thresholds so that the small businesses will understand what they are potentially requesting. I do think without such policy or threshold, if we simply just rely upon the loss of business as verified in a tax return, you could get in a situation where a business lost several $1 million. And without such policy, I think you may be in a position where you may want to have to consider that. So I certainly, while I recommend this particular request, I don't know if you want to act on it tonight. You may want to consider some thresholds. I think Mr. DeBose has given us some parameters. We had some discussions in the office of where those may be. I think he's trying to get at somewhat of a small business with 75 or less employees. Try to set some type of limit. I think he's thrown two numbers out there, maybe a $25,000 threshold, maybe up to a $50,000 threshold. So those are things I think we should have some conversations on and see what council's purview may be.
And I certainly would like to see that in writing before us to adopt a policy before we move forward with awarding the first. I mean, I'm in favor of this too, but I think it's incumbent upon us to set that policy so that the entire universe knows, what we're about and who we are, so that going forward, nothing's arbitrary. So
I would agree with that as well. Yeah, absolutely.
I anticipate that we'll receive dozens of requests over the next few months. And
Exactly.
I think it just kind of guide us.
I agree.
Yeah.
Is there any thoughts, first of all, on the employee threshold that Mr. DeBose threw out, the dollar thresholds, and another thing that you may want to have some type of feedback on is the type of business? Or do we just want to leave it open to any particular business? I mean, obviously, this was a fitness center. We know fitness centers were substantially impacted with COVID closures. There's other types of businesses. We know that all nail salons, hair salons, hospitality industry, restaurants were some of the other ones that had some direct closures there, especially in the first year of the COVID pandemic. But whether we want to target certain businesses or whether we want to leave it open with just those other thresholds. So any input you may have to help us draft some policy to bring back to you would be beneficial.
Council?
I agree with,
You said a limit per business was one thing you talked about. I think that's a good idea. I don't know what that number is, whether it's 25 or 50, but that's some number. And then, like I said, some tax returns or proof of loss of revenue, which, and then we need to make sure they had a business license in the city during that period.
City business only, so I hear that.
Right.
so what was the, with the employees again, for clarity's sake?
Instead of 75?
75, that would be, that's the minimum, correct? They have to have 75?
Max.
Up to.
Max. Okay.
And then with those limits, I'm just, for discussion purposes, would that be per quarter, per year, total for the whole program? Are we looking at a
For the whole program.
putting a cap on?
For the whole program, whatever the dollar.
On one draw.
One application.
One
One
application per our
application.
program.
Right.
Yeah, not an annual.
No, it's not an annual
Is-
sale.
And the law.
What's being proposed, though, is that a clear enough guidelines for, to me, it's not clear enough. So I would probably assume that it's not clear enough for you guys as well. So although I agree with it, I think
This is.
I'm not comfortable with voting, or
I'm
do.
not suggesting that.
No,
We're
not
giving them guidance to bring us
Yeah.
back a document for our next agenda.
I'm not real sure if have we given them the guidance you need? And I would like,
Well, I think haven't heard any opposition to the 75 number. Again, I think Councilmember DeVoe is just trying to keep it at a small business, but probably large enough to also include restaurants.
Yeah,
I
we
imagine that's
thought
what
that
you're thinking.
probably the largest number would be some of our private restaurants in town.
And I think, obviously, we've heard. all
Business
businesses
license.
In the city, up to 75 employees. What I haven't heard is kind of what your thoughts are on the dollar wise. Because of course,
Well,
we put two numbers out, and it could be more, it could be less.
And I don't know how we break it, but to me, there's a small business that's a 1 or 2 person operator, and there's a bigger business that has 15
I'd
or
like to
20.
keep it simple, to be honest with you.
Well,
Keep it all-
either break it that way or all have the same 25 limit.
One clarification that ARPA does provide outside of that, at minimum, the normal small business number would be 500, which is too high to really provide funding. The other clarifications,
500 employees.
yes, 500 employees, yes.
That's the SBA
The other clarifications that they would provide is that it would be mainly no franchisees or no chain operations. So
Right.
they would be not necessarily sole proprietorships, but they could also be LLCs, so forth and so on, just as long as they're individually owned and operated.
But not a franchisee?
No, not franchisees, so that would exclude like Chick-fil-A, Red Robin, so forth.
McDonald's, Burger King.
Yes, yes.
well, yeah, I would agree with that, absolutely.
So,
No Frenchies.
just going back to the employee question, some of these small businesses that are not franchised, restaurants, I know they hire a lot of people. Is 75 a realistic number? Is 50 more of a realistic number? Roughly how many?
How was
I think you're
75?
setting them.
To Councilman Shell's question, 2 or 3, I think most people think, small business, less than 10 maybe, or
We
whatever.
have a operator here that's prepared to answer that question
If she would like to come forward and state her name for the record, please.
Well, and potentially also Mr. King, how many employees do you have, so?
My name is Linda Key, and I'm the operator of the cellar in Newnan. And honestly, I think that the SBA sets a limit of 50 employees while you're considered a small business with 50.
It's, in the ARPA guidelines, it states 500.
500. Because we don't go over 50 employees. But we do sometimes have, in the summertime, we employ a lot of students that are home. We, of course, employ high school students that it's their first job. But then we have, I would say, around 20 full-time employees.
So no more than like 50 full-time equivalent?
Oh, no, we never go over 50 because I thought that was the SBA guideline, so
Yeah.
no. We've had 49 before, but.
Mr. Key, would you like to address that question? as
Thank
well?
you, Ms. Key. Yes.
Thank you for letting me speak. I'm Tim King. I'm the owner of NRG Fitness Center.
Mr. King?
Personally, for me, I'm an owner-operator. And I 1099 all of my employees, so that would answer that question. I probably have 10 or so, maximum of 15 1099s between personal trainers, my cleaning crew, my roping instructors, and the like. So that would be, for me, I would be a true definition of a small business owner.
Sure, thank you. We appreciate that.
Sure, thank you.
Okay, so if 75 seems to be well above what we
So
need
it
to
seems,
set.
yeah, I'm more comfortable with the small business, if we do a 50, but.
50.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'm fine with 50.
Guidance on 50.
I don't have any problems with that.
Is there a number, is there a maximum dollar amount?
I mean, we would, my recommendation would be no more than 50 per applicant, however, the applicant should show a true loss.
Right.
So it could be
Okay.
up to that number. I think that allows this
Not
body.
straight up 50, it's
Correct.
based upon their true actual loss.
Correct, you'd have to show
All
that,
right, true loss during what period?
as Mr. Moody
We've
explained.
been setting the loss period as the year 2020 as the pandemic period against base year 2019.
Okay.
Calendar years?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so it would go 20, 21, and 22?
No, just 20.
Just
Just
20.
20.
Just
2020.
Just 20.
Just
It's forward,
20.
it's forward-looking from that point.
Okay. So it's not cumulative of the years?
So if they were not in business in 2019, therefore they would not be eligible for the request.
Correct. Now, well, to an extent, I will say, to an extent, ARPA does provide an opportunity for businesses that are experiencing financial insecurity to also apply for funds. That could include businesses that are in the early startup period that don't have that fund basis that they've built up over a period of time. So that's something you could consider as
Would you apply
well.
the same standard though? 50?
Yeah.
But if you're not in business in 19 and you make a claim for 20, there's no benchmark.
Can you define financial insecurity? Is there a way to quantify
They're
that?
we could try to quantify it ourselves. ARPA is very vague and broad when it comes to that sense. It explicitly states financial insecurity.
Because, I mean, for everybody
So
else,
it's up to your own
looking at tax
interpretation.
records, if they don't have the tax records, then it's
Correct.
gonna be kind of
That's what I'm saying, you have no
Yeah.
benchmark.
a lot of gray area
And you
there.
could be in business 2 months and then everything hit, but
Yep.
I don't know how we cover that.
And we have some.
No.
Category.
No, you don't. You can choose and you can select whatever you want to follow.
We just stick to year 2020?
We can.
Okay, without 2019
That's the only way you're
included?
gonna quantify it.
Yeah.
Is there any
That's it.
restrictions on receiving this money from ARPA if they've received the PPP
I haven't seen any
payroll
restrictions,
protection plan? or
no,
whatever it
I haven't
was?
seen any restrictions.
And do we set any restrictions if they've already received a PPP loan or grant?
It's a loan.
They would have to disclose that,
Some of them
right?
were granted, I
They're loans.
believe.
They're forgivable.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of them were forgiven.
But that money was from the
That's separate.
SBA. It was not
Correct.
the same,
Different piece of legislation.
it's not the same pot of money.
And PPP didn't cover all of your expenses. It only covered payroll for your
Payroll,
personnel,
that's right.
not necessarily business loss.
I think Mr. King
Do you
has a
have enough
question.
guidance to bring a policy back to us?
One question.
Mr. Alexander?
Yes, sir. If a business was in business partially during 2019, are they covered? Because you might run into some of that. I'm just throwing it out there.
I think if you could be, George, and you would only have
Mr. King?
so
might
many
have-
months to compare, but that
That's
would
right.
be better than nothing.
That's right. Yeah.
I just wanted to address the question about the PPP. For my personal experience, being basically an employee of 1099s, I received no PPP. So I was negatively impacted by COVID, and I didn't get any help in that sense. So, I mean, although I have people that I employ, but since I 1099 them, they did not allow me to claim that, nor was I able to claim myself. So I just want to throw that out there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, there's one other thing that the staff had brought out to me, and that was that they're ready to act on this within a month or so. It's not something that you have to wait a year or so to get paid on, so.
Once this body approves,
Yeah.
yeah, we'll have it.
So do you have enough guidance to bring back the policy for our
Yeah.
approval at our next meeting?
We do. One thing I want to clarify as well and get your guidance on, is that there are differences that Treasury wants us to acknowledge between qualified census tract operating businesses and those who operate outside. Qualified census tract operating businesses generally qualify for more funding as compared to those on the outside. So there is an opportunity to provide more to those who are considered disproportionately impacted in the Treasury's eyes versus those that are not. So that's one thing we have to consider when we're trying to keep this funding proportional to what the harm is indicated by the Treasury.
I think the policy needs to reflect that.
Okay. So, Mr. Moody, does that mean
And
they're
if you-
physically located in the qualified
Yes.
census tracts, or they,
Yes.
like Mr. King, employ people that live in those areas?
Correct. So let's
Okay.
take the downtown area
Or
as an
service.
example. The downtown area is within a qualified census tract. So those businesses generally will qualify for more funding because in Treasury's eyes, they're considered disproportionately impacted as compared to, say, businesses in the Summer Grove area.
And might I remind y'all that some of the qualified census tracts were also right along the tornado path. So we have had people doubly impacted by COVID and our latest, greatest tragedy.
Just for clarity's sake, Mr. Mayor, we're going to not start a business that was only half for, in 2019. We're just going to stick to year 2020, correct?
Correct.
Because I let,
That 2020 will be
Councilman
the year
Alexander
that
has
they need to
2019.
indicate a loss. That's
All right,
correct.
so it's 2020 and that's it. Okay. Okay.
So we'll see this on our next agenda for review and approval, discussion. Is that all right with everyone?
That's good.
No motion needed here.
So therefore, that will continue.
We'll continue this application for the external until the next meeting. Thank you, Mr. King. Appreciate you being here. Any other questions or discussion?
Just one quick question. Mr. Moody, you said something. If we approve this one, for example, how long till he would receive that relief?
It would depend on what's laid out in the terms. Currently, the terms that the Coweta Community Foundation received, once they have signed the award, they would generally receive it within 30 days.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, as we said, no action needed on this second request. The next item on the agenda is a consideration for an intergovernmental agreement between Coweta County and the City of Newnan regarding the outdoor warning signals. Chief, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing, Mayor?
Good.
Council? Okay, this is for consideration for the intergovernmental agreement for a maintenance program for our tornado sirens. There are 8 sirens that are inside the city limits. There are 22 in the county, so there's 30 in all. And they're currently not a maintenance program. So they do test them, but they haven't gone out and looked at them in a long time. So they're going to have to go out and inspect them. And the first part is just the maintenance agreement, and you see that in your attachment. So we need to implement a maintenance program for these sirens.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second to implement the intergovernmental agreement between Coweta County and City of Newnan regarding our siren program. Any discussion?
One quick question. Does this, you said that the initial cost is $3,100,
That's correct.
and then does this, I didn't notice, I don't remember if I noticed a provision for the annual cost thereafter, or for the maintenance thereafter?
$3,100 is the initial agreement. It may be less, it could be a little bit more. And if any cost, I mean, what's there now, Newnan Utilities actually started the program, so they were the first ones to have the sirens put in place. The county jumped on board later, and it's been a long time. They actually maintain them and they trigger them too, so they're the ones that are in control of them when the tornado comes through or any type of bad weather. If they go out and inspect them, these are old. Now, I have been informed that they probably can't fix them if they're messed up, so they're going to have to go and put new ones in, which is probably going to be a little bit more costly, but these are more modern. They work off a telephone. They can be triggered for anywhere.
There's no doubt several of these sirens that Chief Brown is referring to are older analog technology. I think Mr. Phillips of Newnan Utilities could probably speak on this as they actually decide them. Are any of our sirens actually digital format, or are they all analog? All analog. They're all analog, so, there's probably going to be a point in time to where we will come forward with a change to a digital system for maintenance and testing. modern technology, et cetera, but that's not what this particular request is, but don't be surprised if that is in front of us at some point.
And then again, these may last the next 10 or 15 years too, and if it's not broke, don't fix them. They work very well, and they woke a lot of people up last March and saved a lot of lives, so. But if there is a big cost when they go in there and look at them, inspect them, they're not gonna fix them until they get your approval. So that's all in the agreement.
All right.
Thank you, Chief.
You're welcome.
I do have a motion and a second to approve. Any other discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion carried. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. The next is a request from Newnan Utilities to harvest, but this is actually tree management or timber management, approximately 350 acres of forest land on Highway 34 and Holbrook Road. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second to approve the request as presented. Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion carried. The next item on the agenda is, this is a public hearing by the owner, who is the city of Newnan, to demolish the structure at 7 Lee Street, which was constructed more than 50 years ago. Mr. Stevenson, how are you this evening?
Fine, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Before you is the request to demo 7 Lee Street. This is a structure that the city has owned for quite some time. It has been a storage building. As far as I know, as long as I've been here, it's been vacant. So it's somewhat dilapidated, the interior is antiquated, and we would like to demolish it to put in a parking lot, which is, would help with the Wadsworth Auditorium. And this property is, the 7 Lee Street is not in a historical area.
All right, is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Wait, hold on, I'm sorry. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone here that would like to speak to the issue of the demolition of the property at 7 Lee Street? This is a public hearing for that issue. Seeing no one come forward, I'm going to close the public hearing now. Is there a motion?
So motion.
Second.
Motion is second. We approve the request. Any discussion?
I do have a couple questions. Did we have any communication from the Historical Society on this particular?
They have not contacted me. I did contact them with an email, my standard email that I send on all the demos that we do, and I have not heard anything.
Okay, it seems that we never hear back from them. Are we sure they're getting it?
I know one of the emails was working. The lady did respond to me one time and let me know a change of email. And I have talked with Kim, I think her name's Kimberly? Emily, thank you. I have spoken to her in the past, so I know she does get my emails as well.
Okay.
But I didn't speak to her about this specific item. I just let them know that it's coming before council, and if they wish or if they have any information that they can share with us, to please do so.
Do have a motion and a second. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion carried.
Thank you, Mayor.
The next item on the agenda today is a consideration to petition to quiet title 3 Reynolds Street. Is there a motion on this?
So moved.
Second. Motion is second. We grant the petition. Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carried. Thank you. The next is a discussion for the consideration of a possible amendment to the intergovernmental agreement between the City of Newnan and the Newnan Urban Redevelopment Authority regarding the rehabilitation of and sale of the property at 100 East Washington Street. Someone?
Chairman Walton is here to discuss that with you today.
All right, thank you. Mr. Walton, how are you tonight?
I'm great, Council. I'm Gerald Walton, the chairman of the Newnan Urban Redevelopment Agency. We're coming here today for guidance for 100 East Washington Street. It's a property that the city deeded to us in February, along with $100,000 to rehab the property. We put the work out for bid, and we didn't get anything back on the first $100,000. So we came back to council for another $50,000, which we got, and we did get a bid back for that from Energy Construction Solutions. But the problem we're having now during the demolition, there's several items that have come up, and we just need some guidance from council on how to proceed.
I have a question, Mayor.
Sure.
How much more is the increase, do you know, Mr. Walton?
Well, right now, 50,000, and that's actually not set in stone. It could go up a little bit more. And I have Lorraine here. She'll speak to some of the issues that were found,
Yes, sir.
and maybe she can clear up a few things.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
I'm Lorraine Newnan with Locust Design and Consulting. I was the architect that worked with Nura on this project.
Welcome.
And thank you for hearing me. So in regards to the project, as you know, with existing structures like this, you get into demolition and you start to find out what you don't know. So the contractor began the demolition process and uncovered a number of issues which were concealed construction deficiencies, which were laid out in the field report that I sent to Nora, which I think Tracy included in your packet. Some of the issues also may have been worsened by the tornado. There was some damage from the storm, roof damage particularly, but also they ended up removing a tree adjacent to the property, which may have caused some erosion or soil issues that contributed to the foundation issues that we're having. So we are looking at potentially either repair or replacement of the roof. We're looking at doing some foundation stabilization because basically we have an area at the front corner of the house, and none of the floors were particularly level before, but we came back after the storm and it's much more noticeable in this one corner of the house, and we realized that after doing some more demolition that there's some structural issues underpinning the foundations would be the next step to try to correct those. So there's foundation issues, the roof issues, and in addition to that, we discovered that the HVAC ductwork in the crawl space has mold and mildew inside, so all of that would need to be replaced. The existing HVAC unit was gas, and they discovered that the gas connection to the street had been disconnected at some point in time. So we're looking at possibly replacing the whole HVAC system. And also, we could not find a water heater where we thought there was going to be one in the attic, and so it would require a new water heater as well. So these were just the issues that came up in the first round of demolition. So we're, at least tentatively, we don't have hard numbers on anything except the roof, which complete roof replacement was about $10,000. To do a repair, which would be visible, because it's difficult to match those existing shingles, was closer to $3,000. But we're looking at, all-inclusive, it's at least $50,000, possibly more, once we get further into the work.
So we're possibly looking at a total budget cost here of around 200 or 200 plus?
205 at least.
And at the end of the restoration of this house, we'll have a two-bedroom, three-bedroom?
It's a three-bedroom.
Three-bedroom,
and two-bathroom.
two-bath?
Yes.
Okay.
So one of the things, may I step in here?
Sure.
One of the things that concerned me was the mold and moisture damage, which in today's world right now, in any world right now, that's a very scary thought, because you're talking about remediation. If that's seeped into any of the wood and things of that sort, and then you have to have a verification of the everything being remediated, and that transfers with the property. That being said, as you're looking for direction, my question back to you is some of the things that you're unwrapping here and still unwrapping. I would venture to say $50,000 is really kind of a very conservative number. You could see that into contingency up to 75 and even more. And then at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, what's the product going to look like to sell? Because so you have your seed money for your other property. And is it now being a property that's going to be rehabbed and marketable? And so that's my question, probably my concern. There's three options here, and increasing the loan and then consider adjusting the scope of the work, because you can't really patchwork this, correct? Would you agree? It's got to be done really with excellence, or why bother? Would be my point. As a buyer, I'm sitting here and you've patchworked something, and you got remediation, you got a number of these things, and I'm going, is that something I want to put 400 grand into? Probably not. So the third option is, if you're looking for direction, is demolish the house and build something with some good money that would produce a good profit and add some extreme value to the neighborhood. That's kind of where we are. I know where based upon what you're saying and for direction from me, I think number 3 is certainly a reasonable thing to just, I think we purchased that house for 160, I believe it was, something like that. So you'd be realistic and hard numbers, or you're 360 into this thing, you know? So you calculate the numbers and run the numbers, and I've done a few of these. Matter of fact, they even have movies on this called Money Pit, I believe it is. So we have to be careful, you know, from giving you guidance as to, you know, what do you really want to do here?
Yeah, it's definitely a challenging question. I think, you know, obviously the house has character and history of its own, and there's always an inherent value in trying to preserve that when it makes sense. And that's the question is, you know, at what point does it no longer make sense?
Mr. Alexander?
Yes, sir. What year was that house built? Do you know?
That's a good
Approximately?
question.
It's
I would say
over
that-
50 years.
It's over 50 years.
Yeah, it's
It-
probably,
30s?
It's been added to, no, it's
It's in-
probably, I think,
it's in
from the
your
45 or so. I believe it was in the 40s, but it's been added on to quite a
The
bit
front
over the
porch
years.
is not original.
it was
and
actually
there's a
built in
couple other things.
1949.
Okay.
Okay.
But how
So,
many
yeah,
square feet?
there
Do you
were at
know?
least 2 additions onto it that I could tell.
What's the square footage roughly?
Square footage, this says 928, but I think,
No,
It had
it
been
was about
added on to-
1,400 if I
1,400
remember
is what I had.
correctly.
yeah, it
Okay.
had been added on to at some point.
Yeah, it probably was about 900 or 1,000 initially, and there were 2 additions that appear to have been built later.
Do you have a recommendation?
That is a challenging question. I would be sitting up there if I had a good one. You know, I think it's probably a question of how much doing this additional work, as you alluded to, how much profit would we actually end up with at the end of it, because that's ultimately the end goal. And I would probably need someone smarter than me to tell me what we could actually sell this for after this work is done, but.
I believe that the goal of this is also to make sure that we have some affordable workforce housing. So saying we sell it for 400,000 is not going to be something that we can do in this situation. So in order to meet the requirements that we have for the audience that we're trying to service, the numbers don't add up to renovate. The numbers add up much better to demolish and construct a new home, as long as we can also get some administrative variances based on what's already in the neighborhood for size and that kind of thing, so they don't have to meet the requirements for size in this particular case. Because a new construction, just based on my habitat numbers, because that's what we do all day, we're spending about 125 on a house, not including acquisition and all of that. And that gets you much closer to being able to sell it for the type of price that we need to have it at for the type of client that we're trying to get this to.
Yeah, I think that's a fair
So,
assessment.
Mr. Shell?
There's 2 houses, I think, on Farmer Street that have been built in the last year, right across the street from the park. What kind of values do those houses, what did they sell for, what do they have? I just know that they're brand-new houses in the neighborhood with that small lot type thing.
That's right.
And this property, it's on a good-sized lot, and I think if the house were, you know,
Set
maybe
back.
set back a little bit further, it
Yeah.
might help its marketability as well. So I think there's a good argument to be made that, you know, trying to sell it at a 400,000 price point is just not really realistic.
It's not realistic, and it's not going to meet what we're trying to do, because we don't need to help the $400,000 market. They can take care of themselves.
That's right. So the redevelopment authority owns this property at this point. So my suggestion would be that they would be the applicant for the demolition, since it's older than 50 years old. You just saw what we went through on 7 Lee Street. So if you'd like some guidance, Mr. Sears? is
Yeah,
that
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to correct, I was looking at 7 Lee Street, this house was actually built in 1900.
Yeah.
It's been added on to and it's 1526.
By the looks of it, that sounds about right.
Right.
No,
Yeah, that's I
not that
apologize.
style.
So is there a motion at this point to, if you're asking for discussion or guidance, for the council to give guidance to the redevelopment authority to provide for an application for demolition on the property?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion?
I have a question. We gave an extra 55,000. How much of that has been spent?
It was, yeah, it was an extra 50 that was, no, I don't think they've only just started the demolition.
Ms. Tracy?
Tracy can,
We have not begun much of the
Ms.
demolition
Donovan,
so
I'm
far.
sorry, will you state your name?
I'm sorry, Tracy Donovan, Planning and Zoning Director. We have not done much in terms of working on the house. We have the contractor has done a little bit of demolition and so forth, but I don't even think we're approaching 50,000 yet on being spent.
You've not received the first pay application.
That's correct. We have not received the first pay application. We do owe Lorraine some money here, but aside from that, we really haven't done much else on the house.
Well, we want to pay the bills we owe.
Yes, most
Sure.
definitely.
I would have to say, the authority the agency is under contract, so we will have to negotiate an exit from that contract because there has been money spent for bonding and other things. And so we'll have to sit down and negotiate that exit.
Want to pay our obligations.
Would there be any, maybe this
Increase
is
to the budget?
Maybe this
Yes.
is a discussion for a later term,
That's where I'm
given
headed.
the difficulties we had in procuring bids for the renovation and the fact that we have a contractor that's currently on contract. I mean, is there an opportunity to amend his contract that would allow him to build a new house?
Sorry.
I mean, that's something we don't have to discuss tonight, but it's something that certainly.
That's a good
When
exit
you're-
strategy.
That is an excellent exit strategy.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Do you,
Okay.
just, Mr. Mayor, question regarding the real estate and the cost of real estate and all of that stuff, since this is more in that purview. The cost to demolish and say rebuild another 1,400 square foot home, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, or 3-bedroom, bath and a half, or whatever it is, what kind of ballpark cost would we be looking at? And would it make it affordable?
For demolition?
Demolition and to rebuild?
Well, the rebuild, I mean, it's just going to depend on what you want to build.
what you
But
wanna build,
demolition, I
yeah.
just was involved in the demolition on a house on 6 Calhoun, and that demolition came in the $8,000 to $10,000 range. So I think if you figure that, and then the budget, I mean, they're going to have to figure out what that is. The object here is not to provide a profit margin to the agency, but to provide affordable housing.
correct.
So that's the goal. So that helps us tremendously.
Well, just like I said earlier, we do 3-bedroom, 2-bath houses with Habitat that are about 1,340, 1,360 square feet, and we're at about 125.
So 125 onto, we're probably into this for about 130, 140.
How much did the city pay for it?
Yeah.
Is it 120, I think it was.
120?
Yeah, 110, 120 comes to mind.
But their cost basis is zero.
What's that?
Their cost basis is zero.
Right,
Yes.
because they didn't do the acquisition.
Right.
They're only looking at the budget to do as they were asking, the renovation or new construction. And with 155, is that the number that you all have right now?
150.
150.
150?
He was asking for.
With an additional 50,000 plus, yeah, so.
So can you demolish and rebuild for 150?
It's gonna be close.
Yeah,
but
we have to see, but
I
it's
think you
doable,
can.
potentially.
Could be possible.
Well, if
But
I'm-
I would
I
be
think it
willing to
depends on your
give
house
them,
plan that you are building. And
Yeah.
what this body or
yep, and then you're gonna have your design services, to design that new house. So I would suggest that we up the budget a little bit to give them an opportunity to come back with, and I think that new construction is much more viable because you're not running into any other surprises, so to speak, for the most part, as you open this thing up and keep renovating on it and find that something else is wrong. If you take the whole thing down, you could start with a cleaner plate with fewer potentially fewer
And
surprises.
that's another whole different discussion, but I have a motion. Did I have a second on this? Did somebody?
I think we had a
I
second.
had a
yeah.
motion, a second. All right,
What's the
for,
The actual motion?
There was a.
It's to demolish.
To demolish.
Just to
Apply
demolish,
to
just
demolish.
no, the
To
motion,
apply for.
the motion is to ask the authority, the agency, to come back with
Oh,
an
okay, got it.
application for demolition.
Correct.
Okay.
Right. Okay, that's the motion and the second. Any
I
other
second
discussion
that,
on
yeah.
So,
And I second it. You
so,
made
so with the funds available, demolish, and then if they can get a ballpark figure, come back to us for further funding as needed, right? Is that the game plan? the
That's
long-term
not
game
in the
plan?
motion. The motion
No,
is
it's not the
just to-
motion, but that's
Just for
kind of
the
long-term.
demolition,
So-
right?
So I'm gonna call the question. All those in favor of the motion at hand indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. And then at that point, after that's accomplished, you'll need to get your ducks in a row and come back and let's figure out how much money we're looking at.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
I appreciate it very much. The next item on the agenda tonight is a consideration of amendment to the Code of Ordinances for the zoning ordinance of the City of Newnan for tree preservation and landscaping, and consideration of an ordinance to amend Division 3 Newnan Tree Commission, Article 4, Boards and Commissions, Chapter 2, and to provide for additional duties for the Tree Commission. Mr. Furbish.
I'm glad you said that. We came back last meeting with an overview of the revised landscape ordinance, and we're bringing that to you to amend that, amend those ordinances.
Any comments on the proposed amendment to the ordinance before us? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is second. I'll ask again. Comments or questions on the proposed ordinance amendment? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carried. Good job.
Thank you, Mayor.
Appreciate it. I don't have anyone here tonight that's on
Mr.
the
Mayor,
agenda
did the
that's
motion
visitors.
include both ordinances or just the
Yes,
one?
both ordinances.
Both ordinances.
I don't have anyone here tonight who is on the agenda for anything, but I do have two people who have checked the agenda. Mike Riley, is Mike still here? Mike, how are you, sir? It's been years.
It has.
Where have you been?
You grew your hair out.
Welcome back.
How y'all doing?
Good, how are you?
I'm good. Thank y'all for having me. We are about to finish The Walking Dead, starting on March 7th. It is our last episode to be filmed. How many days, we're not quite sure yet. But we do know that we have at least 14 days in the schedule at this point. We start on March 7th. We have approached the city about using the hospital, the closed one, not the brand new one. Going over to the hospital there and using it. We've got that straight with the city here, so we're ready to go. We'll be there for the first week. We'll be in there for three days of filming, but we have some prep and whatnot that will start as early as maybe tomorrow. But we'll be doing a limited amount of ITC there, so we won't be closing any roads or anything like that. But there is a possibility that we'll be back here later in March. There's some areas that we're contemplating. I don't have it all. We don't have it all figured out yet.
Is this for a cast party?
Cast party?
Cast party.
No.
Okay.
No,
Go
sir.
ahead.
No, sir.
Sorry.
We would, we're actually looking in the area of Perry Street, but we may be looking elsewhere. I see the eyebrows being raised. But we're having some more internal discussions about where we might want to go. So I will more than likely be back at your next council meeting on March 8th, I believe it is. Is that correct? Is that the next meeting?
Somebody give me a date, yeah.
Okay. And we, hopefully by then we'll have everything figured out, and I'll be putting forth an application for a permit and seeing if we can get some approval here with council. But y'all been great to us in the past, and so is the entire area, Coweta County, and everyone around us. So we look forward to coming back and doing a good job and moving on from there.
Thank you.
Anyway, thank y'all.
Appreciate you being here.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Okay, and also Larry McWhorter. Mr. McWhorter is here tonight asking something about the Chevron station, I believe, on Bullsboro. Mr. McWhorter, how are you, sir?
Thank y'all for having me tonight, and listen to me. Mr. Mayor, Council. I'm here tonight to talk about the Chevron station out there. They put up these new lights out there on it, LED lights. And I seen them in July putting them up, but I didn't know what was going on, so I went out one night, and I thought that they put up landing lights for the airplanes out there. Because I have a rental house next door, and they were shining all over it. And all behind my house, and over on the next street, you can see them on the houses over there. And see what I got to kind of read this a little bit here. So I kind of let it go for a while. Then I thought somebody else might complain about it, but they hadn't. So I went down and see Ms. Donovan. Yeah, it's 1st of August, and she said it was an ordinance they wasn't supposed to have them lights like that to be bothering anybody. It's not shining on anything. And she said her and Mr. Smith would take care of it. But not long after 2 weeks, and I didn't hear anything from it. One day, one of the code enforcers called me, and he wanted to know if I'd been over and said something. I told him, no, I wouldn't plan on going, because Mr. Donovan said they were going to look at it. So I didn't hear any more for 2 more weeks, and he finally called again and said he had met with a man. They were going to send someone down and do something about the lights, but nothing's been done about them. They did finally unplug one of them. Got one unplugged there. I'm getting behind myself here. They turned one of the lights off. And I noticed y'all said they were talking about putting lights up around these roundabouts. Bill Jenkins was on when I heard that night say anything about what the lights were going to do. She was the only one, but it didn't pass, so she got that fixed, I guess. And so I kept on, if I put up a fence out there, I did put up a fence. I had to finish it on both sides. That was ordinance. And they'll actually take you to court if you don't fix that fence right. And now they're putting these lights up out there like that. They should have got a permit to do it, but they didn't. I don't guess they did. It wasn't fixed like it's supposed to be. And so I was wondering what was going to go on at this service station on 227 Jackson Street, the Parker station out on Jackson Street. And so let me pull up my paper right now. Take this a minute. What I found out going on out there.
I believe Frazier's is building a convenience store there, if I'm not
Right,
mistaken.
right,
Yeah.
go open it up
Right,
out
that's
there, right. Okay. I hadn't seen anything about it in a while. I know I was on the board of zoning appeal here for nearly 20 years, and we had it several times. He wasn't supposed to have it. So, let me get it up here. He come up out there on that. I got it right here. It's on August the 3rd. The agenda book was. It had 3 things on there, and it had, let me put it on up here. Okay, here it is right here. Several people asked questions in there about it, but it's Ms. Margaret Sanders. I don't know. She lived at 224 Jackson Street, and she wanted to know about the lights and everything. And they agreed it wouldn't be no lights to mount anything, but the vice chairman that they asked if anyone needed to speak with Mr. Spradlin or Sanders about this, and Mr. Cliff Smith, who is the chairman of that, asked if there was any restrictions on lighting on these stations. Mr. Dean Smith said yes, and added that it could not shine on anybody's road or right-of-way or property. And also, it was not supposed to be up on the canopies. And they've got them sitting up on the canopies way up high. And they said, they shine. I mean, they shine. And if they just send somebody out to my house at night, and come in my driveways and pull around to the back and just see what they've got shining all up through there. It's just like daylight. You know, it's just this disgrace about that.
Mr. Phillips, will we send code enforcement there tomorrow and find out what's going on with this?
Yeah, we actually have a history on the site. I don't know if Ms. Donovan wants to speak on it, but we're aware, we'll. Bill.
Mr. Stevens?
Yeah, we've already.
So we, Mr. Murray has looked at the property. He did send notice to the owner, the previous owner. They did make a change. I'm not sure what that change was. I don't have a case file. But like I said, they either disconnected it or they realigned it. But evidently it was not enough to satisfy someone. I don't know who that was. I just heard about this a couple of days ago, maybe Friday. But we have sent new notice to the new owner, so to try to get them to comply with the ordinance. So it has been a change of ownership. So that was part of the issue. Another part of the issue is the owner, the previous owner, gave a little bit of pushback because he wants protection of the light. He thinks it has a security value, but we still have the ordinance that we are on the books that we do enforce. So we are moving forward with the notice to the owner. They've already probably received it, and we'll move forward from there.
Is the owner local?
I don't think the owner's local. I could be wrong on that.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not sure. I don't know the case file exactly.
Well, hey, I appreciate all the help y'all could give me on it.
Thank you, Mr. McCoy.
Because,
Appreciate you being here.
It's
Alexander?
been going on since July.
I worked a little bit with Mr. McWhorter on this, and I know code enforcement said they were going out there. It is extremely bright. I've driven by there a couple times to check, and it doesn't look like they've changed the lights. If they did, they went back to the
All they did
lights.
was, excuse me, I'm sorry, I didn't interrupt.
No,
They just unplugged one of them. I don't know, they got 9 lights out there. I'm telling you, that's something, you just wouldn't believe it.
It's bright.
And they unplugged one, it was on a pole, and then the other was on the gooseneck, and they just turned it down. Well, that didn't do nothing. All that light just, boy, that's bright. I didn't know it had lights that bright in there.
We'll get to the bottom of it. Thank you, Mr. McCoy.
Okay, thank y'all, appreciate it. Thank you.
Anyone else here tonight have anything else to come before the council? It's not on the agenda. Okay, council members have anything?
I do. I've got one question. In light of the tornado and some of the things that have happened, I've had some people looking for some assistance in, with their historic preservation of some of their structures. But we have, one of the neighborhoods that was hit is not on the National Register yet, but we have been looking at applying so that they may seek out some of the resources that may be available to the historic districts. Where are we on the chalk level National Register nomination?
Tracy Donovan, Planning Director again. Essentially, we're working on the application. They asked us to combine the Farmer Street Cemetery with it. So we're having to go back and make revisions to that application, and we are hoping to have it in mid-March to them for them to review and then comment back on. So we
Thank
are
you.
making progress. We just had to combine the two, which kind of put a delay in our application process.
Yeah, because we do have some historic structures that were damaged, and they're looking for all the resources that they can and hoping that the National Register nomination can help with some of that. So, thank you.
Okay, anything else from anyone else?
Yes, sir.
Alexander?
I know we've already, this is historic preservation on the Caldwell Tanks area, the old coal building. We were talking about the facade. I've gotten a lot of calls from people that are in the historic district. I know we've already voted on this, but they're asking if we can get a second opinion from someone who's a professional at trying to save a historical facade. So I'm asking council to reconsider if we could look at that.
I thought we did that.
I believe that.
We already did that, yeah.
We did that, I mean, we had the contract and we had Eric, both of them sat there and said
Okay.
it wouldn't work.
Yeah.
But I think to Mr. Alexander's point, maybe someone else may be able to
Just an
confirm or
outside source.
verify that assertion.
His body.
And I'm asking the council if you'd reconsider, so.
Well, Of course, as Mr. Phillips said, it's up to this body, as you vote, we will react. However, the firm that we engaged, Krebs Engineering, is an outside source. It's not a city engineer. So we hired an outside firm to come in to give us a cost to maintain the facade as well as a larger portion of the building. But as you probably recall, that was just one of the reasons why staff suggested that facility come down. It was not solely based upon the cost to preserve, but how that could kind of influence design, how we can manage stormwater in the future, et cetera. So at the pleasure of this council, we'll do, but we did engage Krebs Engineering, an outside private firm, gave us that cost, and that was one of the 4 factors we used to present the recommendation that the structure come down.
May I make this suggestion that you resend as a separate email to each of the members of the council that information so that we can, everyone review it one more time? And Mr. Alexander, that information is a matter of public information?
Sure.
And you can certainly send that information to anyone who's calling and asking questions. I
Sure.
think it will help enlighten some folks on what the issue is.
Right.
I'd be glad to do that. Just for the record, the schedule calls for that building, the old brick structure, to start demo in earnest the end of next week. So keep that in mind. We're trying to.
Okay, thank you for listening.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion, a second to adjourn.